beyond just the assassination attempt, and now the RNC convention in which Trump has picked his VP pick and everything on the right, on the Republican Party, they have their schedule and they're going. How have the Democrats responded? What is it that we've done? Well, after the shooting, the first thing that Biden decided to do was to cancel his campaign ads temporarily that were running because he didn't feel like it was right to attack Donald Trump after something like this happened. The media, following that, was incredibly respectful. Mr. Former President, calling for unity. So many Congress members, both Biden and Trump, and the media have called for unity. There is no fucking unity if they don't want to do it. If you want unity, the Republicans are the ones that have to reach out. They have barricaded themselves, built wall after wall after wall, so that they get to live in their little fantasy world where facts don't get to touch them, and they hate everybody that isn't already there. How can we expect to have any unity? You're gonna say hi, okay? Hello, Mr. Okay, okay. It's just, how can we ever have unity when the half of the country wants the other half dead, essentially? They think anyone who isn't already MAGA is woke and demonic and a groomer and a pedophile and all these other. We can't have any form of unity with these people because they don't want it. And beyond that, what makes me angry is this civility politics from the Democrats, this weak attempt to seem respectable, this aversion to being viewed in any sort of a negative way. The moment that the shooting happened, Republicans were already blaming Democrats. And to avoid further blame, Democrats shut up. They conceded. They gave ground. And what did the Republicans do? Did they stop blaming the Democrats? Did they stop saying that we're inciting violence? No, of course not. They kept going because we gave them ground to. That's the thing with fascists, is you can't concede any ground to them because they will take it and they will use it against you. This is the problem that we're having. What we should be doing, what Biden should be doing right now, and every other Democrat, is go on every cable news show and scream about gun control. The the shooter used an AR-15, took a shot at Donald Trump, wasn't politically partisan, was mentally ill. There's reports of, I think the FBI finally got into his phone and saw that he was searching up things like major depressive disorder. This was a case of right wing, mentally ill people committing stochastic terrorism, which is a theme in this country, which happens regularly. And after every school shooting, major ones, we've attempted to introduce some form of gun legislation that has been shot down by the Republicans time after time after time. This is the best opportunity to ever exist in modern day to pass gun legislation. I feel like maybe some Republicans might be a bit more, might be swayed a bit more easily when we're talking about restricting a weapon that was used to attack the former president. Former president was shot. By the way, guys, doesn't want to leave my lap. This little guy. No, we can have a little bit. Let's take a break from the awful, horrific news of stochastic terrorism, and we'll use that break to light the stream and watch this cat. Off now. Hold on my headphones. Right. Beyond screaming about gun control, Biden should also still be directly attacking Trump. We should be, like, Democrats should be bringing up the Epstein files that leaked recently. It's not like Trump wasn't already in the original, like, Epstein documents. He's in the flight logs. He shows up in about 12 times. He has been found to likely have sexually assaulted a 13-year-old. The case was dismissed because the actual 13-year-old was afraid for her life and didn't want to testify. However, I believe Epstein was found guilty, and the accusation was that they were both present and that they both participated. She did not follow through on the case on Trump. The documents were unsealed. You can have a look. I'm not going to go over it here because it's a bit dark, and I really just, I don't want to read it again. But Katie Johnson was the name of the girl, and honestly, just Google Trump Epstein connections. Why are we not talking about this? Why are we not talking about the clear connection between political violence in America and the Republican Party? The fact that they have been pushing for violence for almost a decade, actually more than a decade now. Why aren't we talking about Charlottesville again? Why aren't we talking about, I suppose we are kind of talking about Project 2025, but now Trump said that he didn't know anything about it, so instantly we back off. Even though it was written by several people that were in his administration, it was funded by the Heritage Foundation, who very closely worked with Trump during his last administration. There's so many things that we could be attacking Trump's campaign on. So many, like an endless amount of shit. He's a convicted felon. The man is a convicted felon. That should be in every sentence spoken about him by a Democrat in the media. It's disappointing to say the least, but it's actually insulting in a lot of ways that this weak liberal ideology of civility politics is what we're going with. I mean, we can have a look at parts of this interview that Biden did. On. There we go. That Biden did with Lester.
And it's
now, he was at least mostly coherent in this interview, but you're gonna see that there's not much in the way of an actual response to the GOP here. I'm just gonna start at 4 minutes in. We don't need the intro.
Agenda.
Yeah, the term is bullseye.
It was a mistake to use the word. I didn't say crosshairs. I meant bullseye.
Oh my fucking god. Don't apologize for using the word bullseye or crosshairs just because the man got shot at when you said that prior. Like, the argument here is that because Biden said put Trump in the crosshairs or the bullseye when talking rhetorically about policy, that is what this is in reference to. It's not about he's not actually telling anyone to commit any violence. This is Joe Biden. The man is the least violent person that I can think of at the current moment. He's an old bumbling man. There's no connection here. And that entire accusation that this is an incitement of violence is bullshit. It's horseshit. It's a straight up lie. And to address it like this, like, oh, I shouldn't have, I'm sorry, it's weak. It's so weak.
And focus on him. Focus on what he's doing. Focus on his policies. Focus on the number of lies he told in the debate. There's a whole range of things.
Stuck on the lies that Trump told in the debate. Just leave the debate alone. You could barely make a sentence. Of course Trump lied. Trump lies every time he speaks. Attack him on the specific lies. Don't just keep saying that he's a liar. Point out what he's lying about.
Look, I'm not the guy that said, I want to be a dictator on day one. I'm not the guy that refused to accept the outcome of the election. I'm not the guy who said that won't accept the outcome of this election automatically. You can't.
Which, yes, that is true. Trump did say that. But, yeah.
Only love your country when you win. And so the focus was on what he's saying. And I mean, the idea.
But have you taken a step back and done a little soul searching on things that you may have said that could incite?
Oh, shut the fuck up, Lester Holt.
And including this conservative Supreme Court said we won. The idea of having a loyalty pledge from all the folks who are in a Republican MAGA, not all Republicans, but MAGA Republicans.
Saying a loyalty pledge. I haven't seen any actual evidence of it, so I'm just going to ignore that bit. But honestly, it wouldn't surprise me, but I would think it would be for, like, the key group, like the inner circle. I'm not sure. They're insane. The GOP all just want to be monarchs, and they're playing civilization right now.
Based on two things. One, what his health is, that was secure, number one. And number two, what happens from here on in terms of the kind of coverage that the president and vice president and former president and new vice president get in terms of, look, I've never seen a circumstance where you ride through certain rural areas of the country and people have signs there, big Trump signs with middle signs saying F Biden, and a little kid standing there putting up his middle finger. I mean, that's the kind of stuff.
You don't think that this might mean you should step down? Like obviously Republicans are gonna hate whoever gets replaced, but half of them think Biden is the Antichrist, or like 30% of them at the very least, the evangelical base. Why are you surprised by this? The things that he's focusing on already, we've skipped around, and every time I've randomly landed somewhere, he's saying some weak nonsense instead of what he should be.
Inflammatory and a kind of viciousness. It's a very different thing than to say, look, I really disagree with the way he takes care of taxes, the way he wants a $5 trillion tax cut for people who are making a lot of money next time around. Doesn't focus on working class people.
But those are policy issues, and we are.
Yeah, again, this is true. Obviously, Trump is going to cut taxes for the wealthy again, and that's going to come out of us. We're paying for that, obviously. However, policy is not what he should be focusing on right now. No one really cares about policy. He should be doing politics. Like, he should know this. The man's been in government since, I don't know, the Stone Age?
Our history is a country that can thoroughly hash out those issues.
And if you notice, what do I talk about with him? The policy issues where he's dividing the country. The policy issues that relate to democracy.
Another question, if I can, about
be more specific.
Saturday, of course, the former president was wounded. One of his supporters died. A couple more people were seriously injured. Was this a massive security failure?
I have had 2 meetings in the Situation Room with all the intelligence.
Look, this was almost certainly a security failure. We went over the video ourselves. I don't know how the Secret Service didn't see this guy. I don't think that they purposefully let it happen, but they clearly fucked up. They should have seen him ages before he shot. I mean, he was on the one of the only roofs nearby.
Those communities, the FBI, Secret Service, et cetera. And I people, a couple cops dying, hanging up, putting up a noose, a gallows for the former vice president.
This isn't helpful. Everyone knows what January 6th is, and the people who would have been convinced by this have already been convinced by this, and the people who don't think that January 6th was bad will not change their minds. Focus on things that are more important. Talk about fucking Epstein. Talk about gun control. Talk about trans people. Like, these are real issues that affect real people's lives. Talk about the fact that this man wants to deport 13 million people, which would collapse the entire U.S. economy and would require something akin to internment camps. Focus on anything else. Just anything else.
And and then you say you're going to forgive people for that? You're going to pardon them?
Of course he's going to
That was
pardon
just
them.
a normal response? That is not. I have my entire career voted against and railed against and moved against the idea of violence is never appropriate. Never, 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 never in politics.
All right, I want to ask you about some other developing news today, if I can. Judge Cannon dismissed the documents case, as you may have heard, in Mar-a-Lago. Can I first get your reaction to?
Yes. Let's address that real quick. I'm going to cover that in another stream as well. Hopefully, this weekend or next week. Probably next week, actually. But the classified documents case was dropped. Judge Cannon claimed that Jack Smith was improperly appointed. This comes from part of one of the things that I believe Clarence Thomas wrote in their ruling for the presidential immunity about vaguely something about inappropriately appointed special counsels. And so Judge Cannon used this to dismiss the case. Obviously, it's going to be appealed. The 11th Circuit might overturn the dismissal of the case, but it's not going to happen before the election. Judge Cannon has done literally every possible thing in her power to delay this case, and honestly, it's criminal, and she should be removed as a judge. But that's a whole other conversation.
To that?
I'm not surprised. It comes from the immunity decision the Supreme Court ruled on, and Clarence Thomas, in his dissent, said that independent.
Speaking of the immunity rule, I know I keep pausing this, but I just do want to say this. For the people that are claiming, still, with zero evidence, because you can just say whatever you want now, that Biden planned the assassination attempt, I find really funny because Biden now legally could plan the assassination attempt and carry it out and not be legally liable because the president has immunity. And yes, it's immunity for official actions, but what's defined as official actions is very broad. So having a conversation with an assassin with a government official in the room could count as an official action, and therefore he could legally have the former president and his political rival assassinated. Now, the assassin would still, be criminally liable in this case, but Biden himself wouldn't. And so that argument is both stupid and a little funny. I just did want to address that while we were on the immunity.
Independent prosecutors appointed by the Attorney General aren't legit. That's the basis on which this judge moved to dismiss. And, I had an independent prosecutor look at me. They spent months on my going through, and I was totally cooperative in and out of my house. I don't know, the last time in, there were like 10, 12 agents in my house for 9 hours unaccompanied, going through every single thing I had. That's appropriate. And they looked at me and concluded I didn't do a damn thing wrong. But my generic point is that it's,
Oh, no, what did he not do wrong?
but I had an independent prosecutor look at me.
Oh,
They
yeah,
spent
for
months on my going through
trials
the
that they tried to pull up against him. That went nowhere because he hasn't committed any crimes.
dissent and/or the Supreme Court decision on immunity.
I mean, his son did. And the fact that he gets a lot of advice from his son and his wife right now is pretty gross, and I hate it, and I think it's wrong and he should stop. But he himself has not done anything that has been proven to be illegal, though his son has.
In light of this decision, the delay in the Georgia case, the Supreme Court decision on immunity, which you referenced, the former president has seen a series of legal wins recently. You have actively campaigned on his legal woes. Can you do anything like that anymore?
Of course you can. He's a convicted felon. Donald Trump is convicted of 34 felonies. Donald Trump was besties with Epstein. Donald Trump raped a 13-year-old girl. These are things that you can attack him on.
Sure, I can talk about what I think is appropriate. What I think is appropriate. I think the Supreme Court made a terrible decision. I think the justices he appointed have, in fact, been the most conservative. And I would argue, if you survey constitutional scholarship, they seem out of touch with what the founders intended.
Before this violent turn of events over the
I don't even know what Biden really said there. Like, I kind of tuned out because he was talking, but I don't really think he said anything worth listening to anyway.
weekend, the talk, as you know, was about you and your future, if you should stay in the race. Your allies, James Clyburn, Nancy Pelosi, have kind of put it out there.
Again, like I said, every single conversation we have has to involve something about, should he stay in the race? Is he mentally healthy? This is not good. We don't want this.
Seem to be of the opinion that there is a window for you to make this choice. What aren't they getting?
Look, we knew this was going to be a close race from the moment he announced. The idea that we are in a situation where, if you look at all the polling data shows a lot of different things, but there's no wide gap between us. It's essentially.
If you average the polling data together, it's a pretty dead heat. I don't think looking at the polls this far out really matter all that much. I mean, if there's a huge difference, there's a huge difference. But when it's between 4 points between the two of them, I believe, as last I checked, let me see, U.S. national polls, presidential, or yeah, so I see. Oh, they did one for Harris on July 15th. Oh, so this is 538. Harris and Trump tied at 44. Biden 41. Trump 43. Was last week. 50-51. 43-47. 42-44. These are too close to count for anything at this point in time in the race. But also, running against a convicted felon, pedophile, fascist, you should have a larger gap between, and at the very least, you should be ahead. 41-43 Biden is not good. Regardless of how accurate these polls are, Biden should be significantly ahead of Trump.
Toss-up race. And I think one of the arguments that get made, you have the most successful presidency of any president in modern history, maybe since Franklin Roosevelt. Passed more major legislation no one thought could get done. We're able to put together a consensus.
He's right here, in some cases. Biden has done quite a lot for workers' rights, for labor unions. He's done a decent amount for elders, healthcare. He's made progress. I don't know if you can say he's made the most amount of progressive legislation pass since FDR, but I mean, honestly, it wouldn't really surprise me because we haven't exactly been a progressive country since FDR. He did good. He did good. However, we still have Israel. That is a big hit to his supporting base, especially among young voters. And now we have his age and his mental condition being in question. The policies that he's passed are not going to convince people because people don't understand or care about policy. They care about rhetoric, and they care about what they can see, touch, and feel, what's directly impacting them. This is weak.
We're able to unite NATO. We're able to deal in foreign policy. Why don't you just decide to rest on those laurels? And the answer is because the job's not finished.
Do you feel like you've weathered the storm on this issue of whether you should be on the ticket or not?
No.
Look, the 28 lies he told.
Again, with the
Where are you on this? Why didn't the press
else.
ever talk about that? 28 times it's confirmed he lied in that debate. I had a bad night. I wasn't feeling well at all. And I had been, without it making it, I screwed up. But
I just asked the question because
Of course, the media was not going to focus on the lies that Trump told, because Trump is constantly lying. Meanwhile, the President of the United States had a really bad night and screwed up and made international headlines for not being able to complete a sentence. Of course, the media covered you.
the idea that you may or may not have seen what some of these other folks have seen. You're not on the same.
I'd have to see. I was there. I'm old, but I'm only 3 years older than Trump. Number one.
He's 3 years older than Trump, but Trump acts 10 years younger than him. At the very least, the man got shot, got up and went golfing. Biden needs to drop out right now.
Number two, my mental acuity's been pretty damn good. I've gotten more done than any president has in a long time in 3.5 years.
That's not what matters now.
So I'm willing to be judged on that. I understand why people say, God, he's 81 years old. Whoa, what's he going to be when he's 83 years old or 84 years old? It's a legitimate question to ask.
I want to ask you about, just shortly before you and I sat down, former President Trump named his vice presidential pick, J.D. Vance. What does that tell you, his qualities, what does that tell you about former President Trump's values in terms of who he will surround himself with in a next administration should he win?
Well, it's not unusual. He's going to surround himself with people who agree completely with him.
Say he's a fascist. Say Vance is a fascist. Talk about fascistic things that they've said.
Have a voting record. I support him. Even though if you go back and listen to the things that J.D. Vance said about Trump.
Well, he said some things about you, yeah.
Oh, no, well, he said something about me, but see what he said about Trump. What's with you guys?
Say what he said. Why are you getting mad at the fucking media? What's with you guys? Your job is to convince the public. It's not the media's job to throw you fucking softballs. They're here to interview you, ask you questions, and get your opinion on the things that they're asking about. Your opinion on Trump, his vice presidential pick, their potential policies. Why are you saying, oh, well, you guys should look at the things Vance has said about Trump rather than me, when this is an interview about you, and it's your job to convince the American people that they should vote for you. You shouldn't, like, the fact that he's like, oh, what's with you not mentioning the, mention it yourself. Do it yourself.
Come on, man.
Come
Look,
on, man.
the point I'm making is that J.D. Vance has adopted the same policies, no exceptions on abortion, making sure that he supports the new $5 trillion tax cut that Trump wants to give in the next administration, signing on to the whole notion of whether or not we're going to, he says there's no climate change happening. I mean, he signed on to the...
Are you going to talk about immigration? How they want to deport 13 million people? Are you going to talk about queer people? Schools? Stochastic terrorism?
The Trump agenda, which he should if he's running with Trump.
Mr. Trump has said he's giving you a chance to redeem yourself, basically the idea of engaging in another debate.
We're going to have another
God forbid we have another debate anytime soon. So this is Rachel Maddow at MSNBC reacting to bits of this.
President Biden sitting down today with NBC News anchor Lester Holt in a combative and feisty interview. Lester, look, why don't you guys ever talk about the 28 lies he told? Where were you on this? Why doesn't the press ever talk about that? 28 times it's confirmed. Listens to his son or whatever. And his answer was as short as it could possibly be. Who do you listen to on deeply personal issues like the decisions whether to stay in the race or not? Pause. Me. Me. Look, I've been doing this a long time. The idea that I'm the old guy, I'm old, but I'm only 3 years older than Trump, number one. And number two, my mental acuity has been pretty damn good. I've gotten more done than any president has in a long, long time in 3.5 years. So I'm willing to be judged on that. I understand when people say, God, he's 81 years old. Whoa, what's he going to be like when he's 83 years old or 84 years old? It's a legitimate question to ask.
I mean, I think what we're seeing here is that there is somewhat of a time lag between the news cycle and the subject of the news cycle. You know, I think to Lawrence's point, for Joe Biden, the thing that's relevant today is the campaign as it is today. And there's still a news cycle that is still into, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and the question of whether he stays on the ballot.
I agree with what she's saying here. He's still stuck on this debate instead of the things that are actually important.
And so Joe Biden, I think, expressed some annoyance with the media for staying in that mode when he's ready to keep combating like the battle at hand. And so I think there is just this lag, and I'm not sure if he can escape it because, I mean, people keep asking him the question he's answered already. And the reality...
No, he can't escape it. People are not going to stop asking. He's said on like 10 different occasions that he's not going to drop out, and people keep asking him if he's going to drop out because people want him to drop out. Everybody wants him to drop out. He needs to drop out.
Is, as Lawrence said, within the Democratic Party rules, there really is no way to force him out if he decides he ain't going.
I just hope Lester got a date for that issues interview. Like, when is that going to happen? Let's do that next Monday.
This is live video right now of President Biden arriving in Las Vegas. I mentioned that he's going to be doing that event with the NAACP tomorrow. That is in Las Vegas, Nevada. Again, the president and his campaign made the decision in the immediate wake of the shooting on Saturday night in Pennsylvania to take down all of their political ads and also to cancel all political events. That does not mean that the president cancels all events. He does lots of things as president that are on his official presidential schedule that don't have to do with the campaign. This NAACP event tomorrow and an event with Unidos US.
Like, cool, go to these events. Lovely. But what's the point if you're not talking about any of the important things? Okay. My point that I'm really trying to hammer down in this stream is that there is a significant amount gotta get better batteries for that. The point that I'm trying to make is that there's a significant amount that we can do, that we can say. There's pathways in which we can fight fascism rhetorically. There are ways that we can call out Trump and the GOP that we are not doing because Democrats are too concerned with civility. Or they're weak, or they're stupid. I genuinely cannot think of any other option. Aside from they're complicit, but I'm not going to go into the conspiracy theory that the left and the right politically are working together to control. It's just, obviously they're both bought out by the same corporations, but there's a massive, 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 massive difference between Democrats and Republicans as a party. We should be talking about gun control. We should be calling out Trump for being friends with Epstein. We should be talking about the fact that he's a convicted felon. What we shouldn't be doing is letting Biden stay in the race. He needs to drop out. We need to go on the attack, is my point. Rhetorically, not physically, not advocating violence, I never would, etc., etc., etc. I'm saying this because I know someone's going to say something about it, but we can do better. Our elected officials can do better. Biden is weak, and we deserve better.